Director Gregory has information on funding the cleanup of the C Street landfill.
So, Mayor, council members, I am happy to present to you tonight a grant from Department of Ecology in the amount of $600,000 from Department of Ecology. Our portion of that would be 25%, $200,000 for a total of $800,000. And this is not the largest grant that we have ever gotten, but I think I'm most proud of this grant just because it took us so much work to get this one through. We went from the guarantee that we were getting funding for C Street Landfill to we were so far down on the list that we would never get funding, and ultimately ended up working with the folks from Department of Ecology and built some great relationships as we were doing that and working through that process. Many trips over to Department of Ecology talking about the need for the continuation of the cleanup of the C Street landfill, and ultimately coming through with some funding to get that done, and keeping our ratepayers from the burden of paying for the cleanup of that. So these funds should, with the latest projections, get us through not only the remedial investigation, but the actual cleanup of the C Street landfill. There are still some more studies to be done, so that could be very fluid in what those costs would be. But ultimately, right now, what Aspect Consultants have told us and the budget that they have given us, this would get us with the remaining small portion of money that we have left from the original grant, the $285,000 grant, along with this money, would actually get us to and through an actual cleanup.
Well, it's always nice to hear that we got another grant.
Question, or, excuse me, has anyone signed up for public comment? Okay, thank you, Donna. Now, council, questions, comments?
Look forward to moving this forward.
Yep, getting it done.
Okay.
Nope.
Councilman
Yeah, just
Franz?
wanted to let everybody know that, you know, Craig Gregory has done a phenomenal job. I mean, literally, and he won't take credit for it, very humble man, but he's done a phenomenal job for the city of Shelton in obtaining grant money. I just tell you, he is the best there is, and I greatly appreciate what you've done for the city of Shelton. And those trips over to Department of Ecology and all that stuff, these grants aren't free, and they require years and years of hard work and building relationships, and you have done a phenomenal job in that area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember
Thank
Kranz.
you.
Appreciate it.
One question, Craig.
Yes.
We've had public comment on this. Is there going to be a final either feasibility study or plan published?
As soon as the remedial investigation is
Okay.
finished,
There
we
will
will
be a-
certainly publish that and what that cleanup will consist of, and then we'll move into that cleanup stage. But until we get through the actual remedial investigation, we won't be able to come up with a plan of how to, if it's ultimately a capping of that C Street landfill or whatever the cleanup is, we won't have that until the remedial investigation is done. And there's still a bit of work to be done on the remedial investigation. We're monitoring gases, in-ground gases. The groundwater wells have been drilled and being monitored. So there's still some ongoing study. So as soon as we do get that remedial investigation finished up, and hopefully that'll be done within the next about 12 months, we'll have an actual plan of how to move forward and actually clean up the site.
Okay, so you're still thinking that plan is still 12 months plus
It is.
out?
It's
Okay.
still a ways out.
All right.
There's some stuff, there's some things that just can't be rushed when you're monitoring groundwater and gases that you're trying to find boundaries of. And there's still there's a bit of work to be done still.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know that we had talked about, when this first started, that Goldsboro Creek would be tested to see if anything had come down the hill into Goldsboro Creek. Is that still happening or not?
Well,
Is
that's
there-
done through the groundwater wells and to see where the limits of the leaching have gone.
Okay.
And I think we've found what those limits are, and
Okay.
especially to the south, the Goldsboro Creek direction.
Mm-hmm.
They have drilled wells out there to find outside of the limits of the leaching so that they don't have any gases or contaminants in the ground. And I think they've found those limits to this point. So they know what the extent of the actual cleanup footprint is.
So are we worried about Goldsboro Creek or not?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
It is not, that, if you've been up there, you'll see that it really sits in a bowl. And the contaminant footprint really is contained within that large depression, that bowl area.
Right.
And we haven't seen anything get out of those limits
Okay.
through the monitoring. So we're pretty happy about, and that's really ultimately why the actual cleanup cost that's estimated at this point is so low, is that the activities that have taken place over a number of decades up there have actually really helped out, and the garbage that is actually in that site is very old. It's already broken down for the most part. It doesn't have any methane gas coming off of it. It's a fairly old site. So there's not a lot of mitigation that needs to go into at least what we've seen right now. And like I said, that certainly could change. Stay tuned, because
Yeah.
one small thing that pops up could add, hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars onto a cleanup like this. So I would caution with saying that we're done with this without having the remedial investigation finished up. So we'll ultimately wait until that's done before we actually have a cost to the cleanup.
And the Indian Nation, they're satisfied that Goldsboro, that the testing as far as Goldsboro Creek is clear? Because I know they run their salmon wheels in Goldsboro Creek, so they're,
I haven't had this conversation with them.
Okay.
Ultimately, the conversations that we had recently are in-stream flows, and they're more concerned about in-stream flows than what we've got at the C Street landfill
Okay.
at this point. So
all right.
All right, do we have a motion?
I move to approve the C Street Landfill Remedial Action Grant Amendment Number 3 and authorize the mayor to sign Amendment Number 3.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to amend the C Street landfill grant agreement. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes.